Hi, I'm Owen O'Neill from First Fassa. I'm talking to you today from Valentia Island in Kerry. Valentia was once an important part of the largest Gaelic lordship in Munster, that of McCarthy Moor. It's a good place, I thought, to talk to you about the idea, the word clan, something you hear a lot about, but which is rarely defined. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Anyone reading about Irish history, especially Gaelic history, will come across the word clan. Many believe that Gaelic Ireland is a clan-based society. It's usual to hear people talking about the O'Neill clan, the O'Donnell clan, etc. Some believe that everyone lived in a clan in Gaelic Ireland. The word can also be found in more recent times, in political organisations such as Clan na Gael or various clan societies. In some quarters, it seems that being Irish seems to be tied into being in a clan. Clan coats of arms, clan slogans, clan territories, and even completely ridiculous clan tartans are all on sale. Yet, there was one problem. Something rarely talked about is, what is a clan? What does the word mean? What does it mean now, and how has it been understood over time? All questions that are essential, but rarely discussed. To understand Irish society, to comprehend Gaelic culture, it is essential to ask and answer these questions. I know the answers will probably annoy people, especially those with a narrow view of Irish history, but it is still important to ask them. History is complex, contradictory, confusing, fuzzy, and without easy answers or explanations. Stories where everything is neat and tidy, where everything fits together neatly, and where there are no messy parts, are just this: stories, fairy tales, not history. To answer the question of what a clan is, we have to break it into two sections. One about clans in Gaelic history, looking at lordships, Gaelic dynasties, septs, and the confusing dynamics of Gaelic society. The other examines how the idea of clan has evolved since the late 18th century into a powerful idea, but which has become something far different from what the Gaelic Irish understood the word clan as. We'll start with the latter questions. This is because the idea of clan established in the Romantic period, basically from the end of the 18th century until, say, the beginning of the 20th, has become so strong that it distorts the popular view of Gaelic Ireland and indeed Gaelic Scotland. By Gaelic Ireland I mean a period from the Iron Age until the late 16th and early 17th century. Gaelic Ireland was shattered by the Battle of Kinsale and the flight of the Earls. This was compounded by defeats in the 1640s and 50s. So, by the end of the 17th century, the Gaelic Irish as such no longer existed. In Scotland, the aftermath of Culloden saw the rapid end of Gaelic culture there too. Until the end of the 16th century, Ireland was divided into numerous lordships. At this stage, Gaelic culture was something potent, something feared by English authorities. Gaelic Irish were often portrayed as savages, as barbarians, as nomadic and uncivilized, almost non-human. Even the Old English differentiated themselves from the Gaelic Irish. In Scotland, the picture was more complicated, but the Gaelic Scots were often seen as barbarians, as Irish, etc. Indeed, the existence of a Gaeltacht, a Gaelic universe, including Ireland and part of Scotland, was seen as a threat in both London and Edinburgh. However, the brutal destruction of Gaelic political structures in Ireland and Scotland opened space for a different picture to emerge under the influence of Romanticism, that of the noble savage. This would prove to be much stronger in Scotland than in Ireland, probably because politically Ireland with its large mass of poor Catholics represented much more of a threat than Scotland. Walter Scott bears the most responsibility for this taming of Gaelic Scotland and its replacement with a folk culture based on tartan and clans. and most exemplified in the historical travesty of Clan Tartans. He was not alone. Macpherson's Ossian also played a role. It was also part of a literary or political movement called Romanticism, which would have a large impact on the emergence of nationalism and on the production of a romanticized vision of the past in the 19th and early 20th centuries. In Ireland, its impact could be seen in a more positive way in the translation of many Gaelic works in the 19th century. Translations in urgent need of updating now. In the Gaelic revival at the end of the century, there were attempts to amelioate Scotland in the creation of an Irish kilt. Fortunately, they did not prove very successful. Similar movements occurred in other European countries. In this romantic recreation of Gaelic history, the idea of clan played a starring role. Clan is an Irish word spelled C-L-A-N-N. It means children or family. While the sense in which it was used changed over time, under Scott and others it was given a completely new meaning. It now conveys the idea that everybody in Gaelic Ireland and Gaelic Scotland was a member of a clan, a social group based on lineage. In addition, the clan leader was responsible for the clan. To be a leader or chief meant that you were concerned with the well-being of the clan. Implicit in this is the idea that a clan is something non-modern or non-Western. The Irish and the Gaelic Scots had clans, but not the English, the French, or the Germans. In the 21st century, it seems to have become something which distinguishes individuals because they have a clan, because they are members of a clan, something others do not have. There is another problem here. Why are the O'Neills, the MacDonalds, the McCarthys, the O'Briens, the McGregors clans, but not the Percys, not the Nevilles, not the Tudors, or indeed not the Habsburgs? In a way, this goes back to the old-fashioned rejection of modernism, the claim to a superiority based on an ancient, non-Western lineage. The Gaelic world was always part of the European world, whether you like it or not. Gaelic culture was not some archaic remnant of the ancient past, or of an invented Celtic past. Rather, it was always a modern European culture. Gaelic areas may have been poor in the later Middle Ages and the early modern period, but this was largely the result of external forces. In Ireland, they were underdeveloped by English policy, by the governance of the English state. Gaelic culture and institutions were part of the European world. Nowadays, the idea of clan has spread beyond the Gaelic world. Judging by various history groups on social media, almost every kin group in Scotland is now seen as a clan, including border families such as Grahams and Armstrongs. However, clanship stops at the border with England. On the other hand, many years ago, Stephen Ellis, a lecturer in Irish history in UCG, argued persuasively that various kin groups in the north of England acted the same as Irish kin groups. There is a paradox here. Clan is something said to come from Gaelic culture, something which distinguishes the Gaelic world from the English. However, if the concept is applied to all of Scotland, then the concept is distorted. While I think it is valid to argue that there were kinship groups in the Scottish borderlands and lowland regions, I also think it is valid that these also existed in northern England and elsewhere, in London, in France, in Austria. All elite family groups are clans in a way, whether Habsburgs, Grimaldis, Ghibellines, the Medicis. Yet, this leaves nothing special about Gaelic clans, nothing to differentiate Gaelic elites from other European elites. However, there was a difference, various differences, especially to do with land ownership, inheritance, and internal dynamics. In the modern world, the term clan has become Disneyfied, a fairy tale, something nothing to do with actual history. Gaelic kin groups, whether in Ireland or Scotland, did not have clan tartans, did not have clan slogans, did not have clan coats of arms, and did not have clan territories. They were far more dynamic than this. However, when the word clan is used in popular Irish history, too often it is in an ahistoric way, based on a perspective of a Gaelic society that is a fairy tale. Unfortunately, this fairy tale seems to be growing stronger. It is now time to switch to the other question: clans or kin groups in Gaelic history. As I said, clan comes from an Irish word. Yet, when I'm writing or talking about Gaelic history, I do not like to use the word. I have two reasons for this. First, because the romantic Walter Scott ideal that has nothing to do with actual history has become hegemonic. Second, because the word clan and other related words, slucht, kennel, fina, tua, they all change meaning over time in the Gaelic world. In popular usage, clan conveys the idea of a culture frozen in time and isolated from the modern world, when what existed was a dynamic and constantly changing society, where the meanings of words and institutions themselves were also always evolving. This applies to all human societies. Change is part of the essence of being human, of history. However, recently versions of history which look backwards, where certain cultures are frozen in time, seen as superior and idolized, have become very popular. Despite the common use of the word clan, there has been little research on its actual meaning, or better, meanings. In the academic literature, there have been arguments over the use of the word since the emergence of history as an academic subject at the beginning of the 20th century. Nowadays, academics tend to shy away from its use, probably for the reasons outlined above. Many prefer the word sept, a word I prefer, though I acknowledge it is also problematic. One of the few to unabashedly advocate the word clan is Nicholls, in his famous Gaelic and Gaelicized Ireland in the Middle Ages from the beginning of the 19th century. He defines clan as a unilinear or patrilinear, quote, descent group forming a definite corporate entity with political and legal functions, end quote. However, while he says he has no hesitation in using the word clan, he ignores the popular meaning of the word, and also says that the word was not used by the Gaelic Irish. Rather, they used fina and later slucht. He also acknowledges the misuses of the word, such as the belief in the common ownership of land by a clan, something which has turned scholars off the word. I have no problem with Nicholls' definition of the word clan. The problem is that the word in English has come to mean much more than that, as discussed above. Most academics, as I said, now avoid the word. Few have tackled the problem of defining it. Dr. Catherine Swift is one of those who have. In a very interesting presentation, she looks at the historiography and history of the world. She shows that in Gaelic Ireland, a wide range of terms are used to convey the idea of kin groups. Indeed, she states that there were a much larger number of terms in Irish than in English, and warns against relying on Victorian translations into English, a warning which many need to take into account. Indeed, research into the different Gaelic terms for kin groups is badly needed, especially the different uses of these and how they changed over time. She states that the Irish word clan was not widely used in an Irish medieval context, and that the nature of Irish and Scottish clans, quote, evolves through time in reaction to the political imperatives of the day, end quote. Rather than clans, there were a large number of kin groups using various names, kennel, slucht, dal, and also fina. Swift's argument is convincing. If we look at Gaelic Ireland at the end of the 16th century, we can find proof of this. Clans, in the sense the word is now used, did not exist in Gaelic Ireland. A multitude of lordships existed. These expanded and contracted a lot, depending on the vicissitudes of politics and warfare. Moreover, in every lordship we can find numerous different kin groups. Some of these were referred to as clans, with two N's. However, the Irish word, like all words used for kin groups, had a specific meaning that it is hard to understand nowadays, and which has to be comprehended in specific contexts. Moreover, there were also individuals outside kin groups. This could have been because they were in a clerical position, a servant, a soldier, or a peasant, or indeed an outlaw. It is not true that everyone in Gaelic Ireland was a member of a clan. In his book Tyrone's Rebellion, Hiram Morgan provides a very interesting map of the Lordships of Ulster in the early 1590s. This map refutes the idea of clans. There was no O'Neill clan, no Clan Nail. Rather, there were various O'Neill lordships. Obviously, the most important of these were the Dungannon O'Neills, at that stage under Hugh O'Neill. Alongside him was his brother, Cormac MacBaron, and also Hugh's illegitimate brother Art, who is not on the map. Then there is Turlough MacHenry O'Neill in the Fews, Turlough Linnock O'Neill near Strabane, Hugh MacNeil MacCoin O'Neill, and Phelim MacTurlough O'Neill near Toome. In Clandyboy there was Neil MacHugh O'Neill, Shane MacBrien O'Neill, Neil MacBrien Firth O'Neill, and Owen MacHugh O'Neill. Added to these were the MacShanes, the sons of Shane O'Neill and enemies of Hugh, but not on the map. Nor is this list exhaustive. It is also specific to the 1590s. 15 years previously, or 100, it would have been different. Under all of these lords were a vast number of other families and individuals. For example, O'Hagans and O'Donnellys traditionally held important positions in the O'Neill lordships. Yet the former were closer to Hugh O'Neill and the latter to Shane. Then there would have been individuals such as Henry Hovenden, from a Catholic Old English family among whom Hugh O'Neill was raised, and who later became O'Neill's closest advisor, gaining land in the west of Tyrone. While the O'Neills dominated Tyrone, Armagh and much of Down, it would be wrong to say that these were the territories of the O'Neill clan, as this did not exist as such. Rather, what existed were a series of hierarchical lordships. The O'Neills of Dungannon were powerful and successful in preserving their hegemony over most of Ulster. Yet, the O'Neill lords were not concerned with an O'Neill clan. Rather, too often, their greatest opponents were relatives, brothers, uncles, cousins. This can be witnessed in the O'Neill civil wars between Cormac and Shane O'Neill, or between Turlough Linnock and Hugh O'Neill. Looking at what is probably the strongest Gaelic lordship outside of Ulster, a similar absence of clans can be found. This is the McCarthy-Moore lordship of Desmond. Interestingly, the McCarthys emerged around Cashel in Tipperary. They were part of the Ornocht. Pushed west by the Normans and the O'Briens, they took possession of what is now the Iveragh Peninsula, as well as part of West Cork. Norman expansion into Kerry was halted at the Battle of Callan in 1261. However, in the aftermath of this, the McCarthy lordship split, with the McCarthys of Muskerry and McCarthy-Ray also emerging. In 1596 or 1597, Donald McCarthy-Moore, also known as Earl of Clancair, died. Due to the strategic importance of his lands, the English carried out a very detailed survey of it. As a result, we have a very detailed knowledge of land ownership in South Kerry in the late 1590s, and the various rents and payments due. While McCarthy-Moore claimed overlordship over Desmond, he actually held only a small part of the land. This included land around Valentia Harbour, including Ballycarbery Castle, as well as richer areas near what is now Killarney. In addition to McCarthy-Moore, another 12 or so McCarthy groups held land in the area, such as Slucht Cormac, Slucht Donal Brick, Slucht Nadine, Slucht Cormac of Dungiel, Clan Donal Fineen, and Slucht Owen Moore of Cushmain. Most of the land in Iveragh was actually held by O'Sullivan groups, notably O'Sullivan Moore, the largest individual landholder in Iveragh, the McGrehan O'Sullivans or the McGillicuddies. Other groups included O'Daly's and O'Donohue's. Diving even deeper into the area, other names are associated with various religious buildings, and in other documents a wide range of names appear. What existed was a structure of hierarchical lordships. Drilling down to the bottom rungs of this are a large range of freeholders belonging to very small kin groups, and below these peasants whose names are rarely recorded. From all of the above, it can be seen that the word clan, as it is commonly used, is problematic. Although it is Irish in origin, it is used most often in a way that is completely ahistorical and based on misleading romantic misconceptions. In Gaelic Ireland, kin groups were important. They were complex political and social groups, yet they largely consisted of a family group holding power over large numbers of people not related to them. In this, they were similar to most other European elites. Where they differed is that in Gaelic Ireland, and I think in Gaelic Scotland at certain times, the imperium of these groups was based on a social contract. In other words, the lord had to protect those under his lordship. If he did not, they were free to seek another lord, the translatio imperium as it was called. Second, succession was not based on primogeniture. Rather, the most powerful member of the kin group assumed power. The common idea of clans is ahistorical. It is something that never existed. As I said, Gaelic Ireland was a complex political society. It was part of and interacted with currents of European thought. The idea of clan as something apart from Western European history, as something never changing, is completely wrong. Walter Scott created a monster, a historical aberration. It is time to acknowledge this. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to my channel, and if you feel like supporting it, my Buy Me a Coffee account details are in the description. I also have YouTube thanks. Slán agus gurb maith gurb go léir.